Hey everyone, TARDIS9 here. Just thought I'd try something a little different with this new original story I'd written. This time it is one set in the TV series universe, with particular regards to the character it focuses on. I should say at this point that this story, and my first one, Rosie and James, are not canon to the other stories that I have written for this channel, as all of those ones are set in the Railway series universe. Thank you very much, dry rails and good running everyone, and I hope you enjoy the story. All Fired Up. Written and read by TARDIS9. Rebecca is one of the newest engines on the line. Sometimes she pulls the express along with Gordon. Sometimes she pulls trucks. Whatever the job, she does it well and always has a smile on her face. One night, she had just finished pulling the last passenger train of the evening and was preparing to take the flying Kipper. She hummed happily to herself as the men loaded the vans with crates of freshly caught fish. Usually, Henry took the train, but he had been taken ill again and was at the works for repairs. Rebecca didn't mind. She liked working with trucks. It was a nice change from coaches all the time. The guard shone his green lamp and the driver opened the regulator. Off we go! Rebecca grinned as she steamed slowly into the night. She had a good run and was waiting at Knapford for Philip to shunt some of the vans off the train after he had refueled when she heard a strange wailing sound. "What's that noise?" she asked. Everyone listened. "That? Oh, that's easy," said Philip. "Oh yes? What is it, Philip?" asked Rebecca. "It's a Nina, 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 Nina noise." The box cab grinned. Rebecca sighed. "I know that. I meant, what's it for?" she exclaimed. "That's the fire service," chuckled the driver. "They are specially trained rescue crews who travel in large lorries called fire engines and save people and animals by putting out fires and using big ladders to climb up to high places," explained the fireman. "Hold on," asked Philip. "Aren't you a fireman?" "Yes, technically," the fireman started, "but Then what are you doing here?" Philip blurted out. "You're supposed to be in a fire engine with the other firemen. And if you're meant to stop fires, why do you let them burn in steam engines?" Rebecca groaned. The driver placed his hand over his eyes and the fireman tried to explain, but it was no use. "Oh my goodness, this is serious!" cried Philip. "A fireman letting fires burn! I must tell someone at once!" And he hurried away as fast as his wheels could let him. The fireman turned to Rebecca. "What I meant to say is," he continued, "I'm not that sort of fireman. Those firemen are really called firefighters. It's just fireman was once a popular name for them. For steam engines like you, firemen, or rather stokers, mainly just shovel coal, put water in the boiler and help the driver if there's anything wrong. Firefighters, however, have a much different and much more dangerous job putting out fires." "Why?" asked Rebecca. "What's wrong with letting fires burn?" She was, of course, thinking of fires in her smoke box, but her crew was too tired to explain any more. Still confused, Rebecca backed down into her berth at Tidmouth Sheds. "What is the matter, Rebecca?" asked Nia. Rebecca told her about the firefighters. "But if fires help us move, what's wrong with letting them burn?" she asked. "Absolutely nothing," said Gordon. "A steam engine without a fire is not a proper steam engine at all," James agreed. "Oh, really?" said Edward. He had been sent to help out on Thomas's branch line while the little blue engine was on loan to a railway in China, and had stopped over at the sheds to rest for the night. "I seem to recall a certain someone's fuel trucks catching fire at one point." James looked embarrassed, but Gordon persisted. "Without fires, important engines like me and you can't pull important trains like the Express. Believe me, Rebecca, you cannot possibly live without a fire in your firebox." "I would not be so sure, Gordon," warned Nia darkly. "I've seen many fires in Africa, and they can be dangerous." "Why?" asked Rebecca. "Fire can burn anything," Nia said mournfully. "Especially wood and coal. Wood comes from trees, and trees are home to lots of animals. If they lose their homes to fires, they will have nowhere to go. But worse than that is what happens when someone touches a fire. It can burn them badly, it can really hurt them. But worst of all, it can even kill them." Rebecca gasped. The sheds fell silent. She stayed awake long after the others. A lot of thoughts ran through her mind. It was true that she needed a fire to make steam so that she could be able to move. But it made her feel uncomfortable to know that inside her firebox there lay something that could potentially be lethal. With these thoughts in her mind, she fell into an uneasy sleep. The next day, Rebecca waited at the platform at Maron. She was still thinking about what Nia had said. But she soon had other things to worry about. The coaches she was pulling were old and wooden. They had not been used for some time, but the other express coaches were being overhauled, so Rebecca had had to use these instead. To make matters worse, her train had been full, and passengers constantly left rubbish aboard the coaches. Eventually, some of the passengers began talking to each other. "Can you smell something?" one asked. "Yes," another replied. "It's coming from the coaches." Everyone looked to the rear compartment of the first coach. Smoke seemed to be arising from it. Then the passengers quickly abandoned the train as a small flame shot out of the carriage door. It was quickly followed by another, and soon the second coach had caught fire too. Rebecca and her crew had seen everything. Immediately, her fireman jumped down from the cab and uncoupled the second coach from the rest of the train. Rebecca knew that if the burning coaches stayed at the platform, the station might catch fire too. Guessing what she had to do, she pulled the two burning coaches clear of the station. Her driver stopped the train and uncoupled her, while the fireman telephoned for the fire brigade. Rebecca moved to a safe distance away from the coaches and was very relieved to hear the sound of sirens in the distance. Just then, through the haze of smoke and burning wood, there came a voice. "Fiery Flynn to the rescue!" Rebecca looked around and saw Flynn flying down the road towards her. He wasted no time in setting to work. His crew took out his hosepipes and aimed his water cannons at the coaches. Water shot from them a moment later, but by now the coaches were completely covered in flames. "There's too many!" Flynn cried. Just then a bell could be heard ringing in the distance. Amidst a cloud of steam, Belle came racing into the station limits, her brakes bringing her sharply to a halt. "Need a hand there, partner?" she asked as her water cannons took aim and fired at the coaches. "Good to see ya, Belle!" Flynn cheered. Together, the two rescue vehicles tackled the blaze and soon the fire was out. But the line was now in a terrible mess. Rebecca's fireman talked for a few minutes with the firefighters, then he stormed back to his engine. "That stupid idiot!" he seethed. "On the floor, I tell you! Of all the places a passenger could leave a cigarette! Hasn't he ever heard of an ashtray? It was lucky Flynn just happened to be passing while on patrol!" Rebecca said nothing. When it was safe to do so, she fetched Jerome and Judy and silently took the remains of the coaches to be broken up for scrap. The other engines noticed how silent she was in the sheds that night. They tried asking her what was wrong, but she wouldn't tell them. The next morning, she was the only engine left in the sheds. "Sober up, can't you?" grumbled the driver. The firelighter had tried to light her fire, but it would not catch. Rebecca just sat there, looking sorry for herself. "No, sir, I won't go," she said. The fireman whispered something to the driver. "Do you think that's what it is?" the driver asked. "Of course I do," replied the fireman. They turned and were about to speak to her once more when they heard a voice. "Rebecca, what is the meaning of this?" demanded the Fat Controller. "I came to congratulate you for your work yesterday, and now I find that you refuse to move. What has gotten into you?" Rebecca looked at him and stammered. I can't. The fireman spoke up. "Please, sir," he said, "Rebecca's upset because of what happened yesterday." And he told them about their discussion 2 days ago. The Fat Controller nodded thoughtfully. "I see," he said. He looked at Rebecca. "So you're afraid of fire. Is that true?" he asked. "Yes, sir. I don't mean to disappoint, sir, but I don't like using something that could hurt someone, sir." The Fat Controller smiled. "Rebecca," he said, "you're quite right. Fire is absolutely dangerous. That's why it's kept in your firebox, to keep anyone from getting hurt by it. You see, Rebecca, fire is like trucks. You have to know how to handle it to keep safe." "Really?" asked Rebecca. "Indeed," said the Fat Controller. "And I'm very proud of you for getting those coaches out of the station so quickly. You're a really useful engine, Rebecca." "Oh, thank you, sir," Rebecca smiled happily. "Well, now I must speak to Philip," said the Fat Controller. "He's been trying to force my firemen into joining the fire service." Rebecca is much happier. She knows now just how important her fire is to her. But she is also very well aware of the damage caused by fire. She keeps an eye out for any potential fire hazards on the line, and is always quick to take action when one does arise. Which is just as well. For you should always respect fire. If you don't, it will destroy you and everything you hold dear to your heart.